we go. Let's try that again. Something bugged out with the stream. Sorry about that. But anyways, I'm here. I'm actually wearing a garage supporting Turlo's garage. So it's just the shirt that I put on today. So, it's one of those things. It's not a very glamorous shirt. I wish it was like a V-neck because I prefer wearing V-necks. They're just typically a little more comfortable and they accentuate my body lines a little bit. And I like that more. But regardless of that. So, how's it going, everybody? My name is Katarina, obviously, from Katarina's Garage here. And we are live here on YouTube. So, I do want to talk about something, actually. And it's has to do with moi here. This carburetor. And also of other things, too. Like, what we did to the car, which will be actually in a video later on. So, because I didn't film that process last night, I should have, but I did not. However, that's okay. It's really amazing how this actually works. It just because it's a little different mechanism for this Holley carb as opposed to my Motorcraft. Which now the thing is, so this Holley carb I rebuilt it last night, although mostly rebuilt. It's not fully rebuilt. There's a couple things that could be done. Because I didn't replace the needle and seat, but that's basically it. Everything else has been replaced in this carburetor. All new gaskets, cleaned up really well, and honestly, like it'd be a good carburetor for my car, but it's not what I thought it was. So what I thought this was, because I got this gifted to me from Roy Marco of Roy Marco's Garage. Go check him out on YouTube if you haven't already. He gifted me this carburetor because he had like a box of carburetors, right? And now the thing is, and he spotted this one. He's like, "Oh, perfect, a Holley 2-barrel," and he gave it to me. And so actually, that was my first carburetor rebuild. These are much easier to deal with than the Motorcraft carbs to rebuild, to be honest. I find because you don't have to take apart really to do anything on these. It's stupid easy. It's literally, okay, you got your 4 sort of screws here. That comes off. And you have your jets in here. You have your float. That sort of thing. I didn't replace the float, but my kit didn't come with a float. So otherwise it may have. But, so there's that, right? And that's, and then your power valve is right on the bottom here. Which you need to, do the 4 screws on that. That comes out pretty easily. You fix that, and then there are screws on the bottom here, a total of 5. You take those out, you take off the bottom plate, you replace the gasket, you clean it up, and you put it back together, right? So simple, to be honest. It only took me maybe about half an hour, if that. The half an hour is mostly trying to figure out what am I going to go grab. Of figuring out, or not, should I say, grabbing some stuff from the shop, because I needed some carb clean and stuff like that, so I grabbed that. But in this carburetor, it's not the super clean. I could clean it a little more, but inside it's just about spotless. And I was quite pleasantly surprised about the condition of this carburetor. But anyway, so what is up with this carburetor, and why I'm not super disappointed. I'm just a little disappointed. So I thought this was going to be the carburetor that I was going to put on the car. Specifically when I do boost applications and just modify this to be a blow-through carburetor, which is not that hard to do. I've never done it before, but I've heard it's actually fairly simple to do. So the thing is with this carburetor, I thought it was the aftermarket 2-barrel Holley carb that's 500 CFM and a really badass carburetor. Turns out this, and bear in mind, how 2 barrels and 4 barrels are measured through CFM, which if you don't know what CFM means, it is essentially how much feet per minute of air can be run through it. And some of the best, biggest carburetors are 1150s, 1250s, that sort of thing. Most street cars have about 600, 750, somewhere in there. I actually have a 600 on my 86 Mustang. My 81, I'm not sure actually how big that carburetor is. I want to say it might be the same size as this, or potentially a little bigger. I'm not too sure on that because I can't find information on the specs of that carburetor at all. Like I know it's late 60s because just looking off the numbers, and it's got Holley jets in it, which it's quite convenient. But this carburetor though, this is only a 275 CFM 2-barrel. And the sad part about that is it won't. I can maybe make this work for applications and building the engine potentially. The beauty of this is just like, it's changing out jets. Literally, you just take out those 4, and then the jets are right there. It's so brilliant how they design Holley carbs. I don't like the motorcraft carbs where you have to take half the carburetor apart just to get to the jets. And now, like this carburetor, because I had it fully apart, right? I had it fully blown apart, and you can see some of the gaskets here. Like, this gasket was probably reusable, but I had a new one, so I replaced that. This gasket, well, as you can tell, quite brittle and broken, so it's a good thing I replaced that one. And you can just tell, look at the color of that gasket, right? It's just so gone. And that's what happens when a carburetor sits for a long time. That'll happen to it, and like, a bunch of cycles of gas go through it, and et cetera, right? So, yeah, and then even the part of the power valve here, the end of it, you can see there's a little notch in that. You might not be able to see that very well, but anyway, so that's some of the parts I just kind of kept here, just as kind of a funny thing. But yeah, and so this carburetor, sorry, I'm getting text messages, apologies. So this carburetor came off of, because like I said, I thought it was the aftermarket 500 CFM unit that brand new, that like $600. I'm like, score. Turns out this is only so this is a factory carb for an International with a 304 on it. At least I think 304. Potentially they may have put these on 345s. They may have put them on 392s as well. I'm not too sure on that. And International, if you don't know, actually built the International Scout and trucks, and as well as the Travelall. Those are the 3 vehicles they made for passenger cars that don't require, like a Class 1, or at least what we call Class 1 CDL up here. Right down in the States, I'm not sure exactly what you guys call them, to be honest. But yeah, it's one of these deals where, like, I was like thinking this carburetor is gonna be so badass in the car, it's gonna gain a level of power or whatever else. Because technically a 500 CFM 2-barrel, so a 500 CFM 2-barrel is equivalency of a 325 CFM 4-barrel, which with stock, like a stock cam, it's a little too much carb. It would have been, and I know that. But when I built it, it would have been perfect if this was the 500. However, it's only 275 CFM, which equivalency to a 4-barrel is like 200 or something like that, right? It's very small. Now, the one thing is, if I don't use this carburetor, because I may not, I may just end up selling it, because it's still kind of a desirable carburetor. These Holleys are good carbs. But the one thing is, I might swap out the jets, because my car, and it might be a little lean with the jets I currently have, but it doesn't seem to be. But I don't know, because I have never obviously had an AFR gauge or anything like that on that engine on a dyno, right? Which I do want to get the thing properly dyno tuned. Once there's a cam in it and that sort of thing, like cam and that sort of thing. Hang on. So let's pop up. Oh, hey, no worries. I definitely appreciate you coming out, and hey, that's kind of cool. I mean, on a Chevy Ventura, that's a little van that they made, and they didn't make that van for very long. Actually, it's kind of a rare van to see nowadays, and I think they only had like 3.4s in them. I don't think they put the 3.8s, or maybe they did. And if they did, because like 3.8 van, honestly, that's like unkillable van. Perfect, right? 3.4s aren't bad, but 3.8's better. But yeah, so this honestly, like, it still would be a good carburetor, and I still could put it on my engine because I think, and I'm not too sure, and if anybody knows the designation of motorcraft carbs, let me know, because so the motorcraft carb that's on my car currently is, what is it, C4 AH, no, AF BH. That's the designation on that carburetor for the tag. Now, I'm not too sure. I want to say that's equivalency of this carburetor, actually, of a 275, maybe a 325 CFM 2-barrel, right? That's what I know, and I do know it was on a late 60s 289, I think. That's what I was told anyways. And again, I got that carburetor from Roy Marco as well. He gifted me that carb. And that carb, honestly, it's a pretty good carburetor. I just can't get the idle down. And now I don't think it's the carburetor that's the problem, because I eliminated a vacuum leak as a potential issue because I replaced all the damn gaskets. Every single one. Oh, yeah, and like the one thing is, when you go live through YouTube, it can fluctuate a lot. I can have sometimes 1080, sometimes as low as like even less than 420p, to be honest. So it's one of these things, and I can't control that because I'm not streaming directly. Like, I'm streaming directly through YouTube. I'm not using another source to stream through. I'm also using my phone currently. If I was using my laptop, different story. I'd full 1080. But I think the phone might differentiate that a little bit. So, but yeah, I am doing well, actually. Something I found out on my car, which is a little interesting, and it's just kind of weird. And this is why it leads me to believe that it's the distributor is the problem, or at the very least, the distributor advanced springs, because there is a misnomer out there. Because basically, everybody will say, "Well, your distributor advanced springs will only affect when you're actually, advancing the timing, right?" Well, that's not actually true, because it can actually affect base timing, and because my friend Brian came across this issue on his, so he had he has a 327 in his Datsun 280Z, right? And with the HEI distributor. So it's a little different than mine, obviously, because mine's Ford and it's a Duraspark 2. So, anyways, besides the point. So he had a very similar issue. He could not get the idle down, and when he did, it just ran like crap. Now, I've been able to get the idle down. I got the idle down once, and it just ran like crap, and now I can't get the idle down until I did what I did the other day. Well, just the other day. So what I actually did was, with Keith's help, because he actually has the timing light, and I don't actually know how to read a timing light properly. It's something I was never taught, so, and I didn't ask Keith to teach me, to be honest. But his actually has a built-in, like, so it shows you what the tack is on it too, which is kind of nice, because a lot of them are just very rudimentary, and I have no idea what I'm reading. To be honest, with the flashing light and stuff, I have no idea. And yeah, so to get the idle to where it is now, so where it'd be perfect is about 750 RPM. However, I can't get it that low without retarding the timing so much that I'm actually at -2 degrees of timing. So with that in mind, we got it to 850 RPM with only 2 degrees advanced timing, which, great for fuel economy, bad for performance, right? Because before, I had it at, now, and this is the beauty of what I can do with that engine, and what I can do so driving it around, I can be at that 2 degrees and just be wonderful, right? But then if I decide, hey, I'm going to put like 93 octane in the car, and I'm going to go racing, I can bump up that advance quite considerably. I had it at like 17 or 18 degrees at one point, and it ran really good at that, but the idle was at 1100 RPM. So that's the kind of trade-off, right? And I don't believe that my idle should be about 750 or so at about probably 7 or 8 degrees of timing, maybe a little less than that. That's where it should be. So that's why I want to say it's those distributor advanced sprigs, which I'd have to take apart the distributor to actually find that out because I didn't know actually where they were. It's actually underneath, so not the main top cap itself, but the other cap on those 4 distributors, because they typically have 2 caps. So there's the top cap, which is just on by 2 clips. You take those off, just like any other distributor. And then down below, you have 2 screws that hold on that other plastic piece. You take that off, then you can access the advanced springs. And hey, I just saw Tim comment down below. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, I hope it's good. I hope the quality is good on your guys' end, because I don't know, honestly. I don't usually do this here. I've only done one stream here, and it was at night, so I couldn't tell you what the thing is, because the lights in this house suck. They're really not that bright. But I'm here in Edmonton, and yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, I rebuilt this carburetor because it's a Holly 2 barrel that I thought I was going to put in my car. I might still. We'll see. Because there are a lot of advantages to this carburetor compared to the Motorcraft, but the Motorcraft is better for daily driver use, so I don't know. I really don't know. But I also kind of want to throw this carb on the car just to eliminate the carburetor as an issue of the idle being the way it is. And which I will eventually. I think I'll try to put this carburetor on the car. And unless somebody offers me a good amount of money to buy this carburetor, then I will do it. Because again, it's a Holly 2 barrel 275 CFM. It's not really super desirable. International guys might go nuts for it because they're actually, they're, I don't know how rare they are, but 2 barrel international V8s had this carburetor on them. So, and like from what I could tell, it's probably from a 304, and I think it's early 70s. I could be wrong on that. It's got granular boosters in it, just like a Motorcraft carburetor, so that'll actually help performance too, compared to a general early Holly carburetor. So that's nice. Because Ford actually kind of invented that apparently, and it you really typically don't find granular boosters, which it just helps your performance, to be honest, in the carburetors. That's from what I understand. I don't really know all the details on that, to be honest, because it's not something I'm as in tune with. But this car being only 275 CFM. Now, it's perfect to bolt on the car right now as it's stock. However, when I build it up, I might need to go up in CFM when I, do the turbo and, do the cam, especially. It'll start moving a lot more air. And it's possible that this 275 will not keep up. And I might have to see if I can find one of those 500 CFM 2 barrels. Or, I don't know, maybe go injection at that point. I don't know, because I do want to do some sort of forced induction on my car, whether it's turbo or supercharger. I kind of, I like the idea of the supercharger, because it's just really cool. And the sound that it makes, the look of it. But a turbo is going to be a little easier in my application, at least depending on the turbo. Or I should say, depending on the supercharger, I should say. Because if I do like an Eaton M90 style, the Eatons, they are, they bolt onto your intake, essentially, right? Which we'd have to make a custom bracket that bolts onto the top of the intake to feed everything down the intake. It'd be quite ambitious, but it'd be kind of cool, to be honest. And people have supercharged them. Now, and you can do it a different way, too, because, Roy Marco's idea of this is... So, if you know the style of, an Eaton M90 supercharger, most Eatons, honestly, are just the, what is that style called? I'm trying to think of the name right now. It's just eluding me. But it's the superchargers that everybody used to run. Or at least style of supercharger that everybody used to run. Compared to the ones that are kind of bolted to the front of the motor, and they run a belt, and then they have a sort of tube that goes to your carburetor. these are, usually you have a carburetor bolted on top. However, Roy's idea was to take an Eaton M90's supercharger and machine out the top of the supercharger housing to then bolt a carburetor on top, which is honestly a pretty cool idea. I do like that idea. Um, Although I'd have to cut a hole in my head, guaranteed to do that, and then I'd have to find a scoop that works, which I would honestly just make a sort of variant of my pace car scoop, to be honest, because I like that style of scoop. Just make it a little taller. That's it, and make it a little wider. Not that big of a deal. And then actually make it so that it'll do proper cold air and cut the back out of it. And although I would like to do something that's maybe an electric actuator on it, for if I want cold air, I can just press a button and it opens and closes a sort of door on the back of the hood scoop. Honestly, it would be cool. But I don't think I'm going to do that. Or I might do it in the future. I don't know. It wouldn't be too terrible to set up. Just have it through, and I'd probably have it through a fused source, and then I could just leave it open or closed depending on if that switch is on or off. And do it that way. It'd be really, really neat. Because that way, I can still drive the car daily, and I could also have it feeding cold air into it on days that I kind of want to hot rod the car, right? So it's kind of a neat concept that way that I've always wanted to try, and I know it would actually work because, cowl induction hoods have existed for a long time. Chevy has used cowl induction hoods through the 60s and early 70s. So, it was a proven concept that worked. And they just kind of got away from that. And they decided, especially, GM, mostly with Pontiac, they started doing the Ram Air style, where it's just like these big nostrils up front, which, kind of looks kind of cool depending on the car they're on. But, yeah, it's one of these deals, right? So, unfortunately, this carburetor is a little bit of a disappointment, but I might be able to actually use it on the car now. However, there is one problem and it's not a huge issue that I'd have to address. So this is a manual choke, right? Full-on manual choke. It's not an automatic electric choke like it is on my Motorcraft carburetor, which we actually adapted that because what that originally had. So there's 3 different styles of chokes, technically. There's a full-on manual choke where you pull a lever inside, just like this would be, and you figure out, you pull it out, basically when you want to start the car, you pull it out about halfway or so. And then as the car is fully warmed up, you pull it out all the way, right? Or about a quarter way out. And whatever works for your car, and depending on how cool it is, depending on how much you actually pull it out while starting. And the cool part is about a manual choke is if you have a problem with your car and for some reason the key is not shutting it off, you can just shut the choke completely closed and it should actually stall out the car. Especially if, for example, say the throttle gets stuck open or whatever, and for another reason that, and your key doesn't really want to work, because that does happen, right? Sometimes that the key cylinder gets so wore out that it just doesn't work anymore, and so you can have it running one day, and then you can't shut it off without unhooking the battery, right? That is a thing that does happen to old cars. It's kind of rare, but it does happen. And at the same moment, say the throttle gets a little stuck for some reason. Well, you could just, especially if it's revving out, just you close off the choke with manual choke and it'll shut off the engine, right? That's honestly a little better design in that regard compared to the electric chokes, where as soon as it's and so there's the electric choke, right, where it's just done by electricity, and as the car gets warmer, it can kind of detect that because it has just a little basic sensor inside of it that and a little coil that the coil will expand and contract as it gets warm or cold, and it uses electricity to power that, right? So and it works very well, but the only drawback to it is sometimes you don't want the choke to open as quickly because on summer or on winter days, it can be a pain in the ass to start that car because of the choke, and it's just wanting to open a little quicker than I would like. So, and you can adjust that a little bit, but not much. And now there is the third school of thought, which that carburetor on the car initially had was a heat riser choke. And basically, it would have a tube from the carburetor and it would go down into, I think it's the intake. Um, and what that would do is it would put hot air, and again, towards a coil, but the hot air is actually what expands that coil. And yeah. See, and that is an interesting idea that I might end up doing at some point. I've thought about doing lists like that of saying, like, my favorite cars, my favorite car movies, stuff like that. I'm just trying to think if I can think of 10 car movies, to be honest. And some of them I could maybe do that better with like 5, or even say 5 like car chases as well, because there's some really good car chases out there that, like, it's so funny because everybody talks about Bullet being the best car chase ever. Going, no, that's not the best. Everybody sleeps on the original Italian Job in, I think it was '68. And you had such a awesome movie. I love that movie. It had the best car chase scene of all time with those minis driving through Italy. It's just so cool, right? And it's one of my favorite movies too. And I love, and especially as soon as I saw that movie as a kid, I really wanted an original Mini. And I mean, I might get one someday. I love that style of Mini. I love the look of it. I know they handle amazingly. They're not that fast. You can make them fast though. And like, people will put in like K20 engines and B18s and stuff like that into them and make them just really badass. Crap, I did not see your... Hang on one second. That's the problem with doing this from this. Okay, can I get the... that message. Oh, there we go. There it is. Benny Hill is the 60s version? Yeah, I mean, that is a thing too. And actually, I'm just going to grab a drink really quick here. Just need some of this Coke, and then I do have a glass over here. Because yeah, that's the one thing with being here. It's kind of nice. It's nicer than my house, being here. It's still a trailer, and the trailer is needing a little more work. But there's not near as much crap in this house, so it's kind of nice, right? And these are just literally straight up deck chairs that are for the kitchen table here. There's only 2 of them, so and currently there's only one functional bedroom, which has a Murphy bed. Like, when's the last time you saw a Murphy bed in a house, right? And my friend's just letting me stay here for a bit. Because I can come here whenever, to be honest. It's kind of nice. Because I was going to be working on a Mustang for a friend, but that just did not pan out, to be honest. The car's just way too buried. That, and I think it's just too far gone, to be honest, this Mustang. And I do, like, I need to see it up on a lift and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure it's just not really... Okay, it is salvageable technically, but it's not worth salvaging, if you know what I mean, right? There are certain things there's certain things that you want to think about with a project car, right? And is it economical to fix? As in, like, the one thing is, I don't care how much money I spend on my car. Don't get me wrong. But to physically get it to where it's safe on the road, if it's going to cost you like 10 grand, it's not worth it, right? Because supposedly there's a ton of rust in this car. And like, we went to go check it out today. We didn't really take any pictures or anything. It was just one of these things where it was just far too buried. Like, the snow was basically up to my knee. And I've got long legs. So it was very, very deep. So trying to get it out of there. And it was down like 8th mile of a freaking path. And just, oh God, just dreadful. So, it's something that we can talk about potentially in the future with that car. But honestly, looking at it, it just needs so much work that I told him that, I can just find you a better car. One that's a little more together because like it's missing like its rear bumper cover. It's got quite a bit of rust on it, and it's even missing the rear crash bar for the bumper in general. Um, it's motor doesn't even have any motor mounts in it. It's just placed in there right now. So obviously transmission isn't hooked up. There's no wiring in the car. The brakes don't work. And it's one of these things where you add all that up, right? Everything. So, okay, wiring, brakes, all this different stuff. I can just get you, like I told him, I can get him a car that we can swap all of that stuff into. Like he's got an 8.8 in that car. He's got a T5. He's got, a 302 that's out of a truck that actually, it still has the cross hatching on the cylinder wall. So that's a good engine you could build out, or you can keep it stock. Brilliant, to be honest. Now, the one thing is, because I do like I don't think he's ever driven like a powerful Fox body that has good gearing in it. Because like that thing has 373s, and he has driven it a bit, but he's never driven it on the highway or anything like that. Because like he said he was scared of driving on the highway. I'm going like if it didn't have the rust that it had, it'd be fine. Because Fox bodies are fine on the highway. And just like they're not bad in the wintertime, to be honest. People say, oh, they're the worst car in the winter ever. Get a limited slip diff and drive it, to be honest. Once you get rid of that open diff, Fox bodies are pretty good in the winter, as long as you have good tires that are not wide. Like one of the misnomers in wintertime, because some people will try and say that, oh, wider tires are better in the winter. That is false. Wintertime, you want as thin a tire as you can get, to be honest. So on that car, in the summertime, my rear and front tires, so they go as such. So the front tires in the summertime are 225 60/15s for that car. The rear tires in the summertime are 275 60/15s. So, very wide. They're about yay wide, give or take, right? They're very wide tire. Now, the tires I currently have in the car are 185 70/14s, right? So they're about, so when I said like 275 is about that, they're about that, give or take. Maybe a little bit more than that, but not by much. They're very, very thin. And the reason for that, the reason why you actually want a thinner tire, like as opposed to a wide tire in the wintertime, is because when you hit a patch of ice, the one thing is you actually want the least contact surface on that ice as you can get. It sounds backwards because you want as wide of a tire as you can for roads, right? But on ice, it's different because you don't want that tire to create much contact with that ice, because if it creates too much contact, that's when it starts to slide. And that's the problem with a lot of people say that the Fox bodies are bad in winter, but honestly, I would take that car in winter all day long. It does not bother me one bit. To drive a Fox body in the wintertime, it's not bad. Like I do slide, sure, but take any car without traction control, you're gonna slide. Period. Doesn't matter how good the tires you have, right? So and I don't I've never fully spun out without me actually initiating that, as in I'm drifting around a corner and I spun out. Whoops, it does happen. That's why I do it when there's no traffic or anything like that, and and it's just fun, right? And with the limited slip diff, I have so much grip. It's funny because before with the open diff, I could slide that thing at very low speeds. Now, if I want to slide it, I really have to get higher speeds. So I'm still figuring that one out. But it's one of these things that, and again, it's just a misnomer. Like a lot of old cars actually are not bad, especially if they're light. Because that's the difference too. You actually want a light car in the wintertime too. As light as you can get, to be honest, is better. And trucks, because the one thing is, you want it to be light, but also you want your weight over the drive tires. And fun fact, actually, so front-wheel drive vehicles actually, people say that they are the best in wintertime, but that's actually not true. Your rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive are better for one reason alone. So if you think about, um, so say my hand's a car, right? And so when you press the throttle pedal, even if you're not pinned, what does the car tend to do? Well, it raises the front end just a bit, and all of the weight transfer goes towards the rear, right? So that's why, like, when you see built up cars, and then they have so much traction and so much power that they pull a wheelie. Think about that, but it's just in a little less concept. Or actually, you know what? Best thing you can do: go look at any car that goes on a dyno and they go full out, right? You can see that weight transfer happen. Even at low RPMs, you see it go a little bit. And that little bit of weight transfer, actually, because with front wheel drives, obviously, you want as much weight as possible over those front wheels, right? Now, you have the engine up there, which definitely helps, right, with front wheel drives. But when you do that, and then you have the weight transfer go to the rear of the car, well, that becomes a problem because you're having not as much traction over the front tires. So as a result, they tend to spin a little more, right? Now, the one thing is with a front-wheel drive car, though, they typically won't spin out entirely, but they'll spin going down the road as much. And so that's one of those things. Like, front-wheel drive is not bad, but it's not really my favorite in the wintertime, to be honest. I've driven front-wheel drive in the winter. I've driven rear-wheel drive. Never actually experienced a four-wheel drive car in the wintertime. But it's one of those deals where, just from my little experience in driving these cars, like I do, and because I drive my Fox body daily, right? I love my little Fox body, to be honest. I love that car, and I love my 86 as well, but it's potentially for sale. And, we'll see about that thing of what happens. I might not sell it. I did get an interesting trade offer, but value-wise, it's about there. And it's probably just as hard to sell because it is an F-250 Ford. It's an 89 with a 7.3 diesel. It's got a 5-speed. It's a dually, and it was actually converted to 1-ton specs. So basically, when I say that, it's 1-ton specs are basically the rear axle might be different and the suspension is different. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. I'm pretty sure they have the same frames. So between a 3/4 ton and 1-ton, because a lot of them actually have the same frames. It's just the suspension that's different, right? So and then it has airbags for towing in the back and stuff like that, which is great. That's awesome. But it's one of these things where I'm just not sure, to be honest, of the value of that thing. I think it's close, but I don't know. Because if it was a Dodge, I know the value of the diesels. I don't know Ford diesel values at all. And something that early with the 7.3, I'm not sure how desirable those early 7.3s are. I have no idea. I know it's an easier truck to work on because it's what I consider like an OBS Ford. I think that's the OBS. I don't know. The Ford trucks have so many nicknames. It's insane. Where Chevy is kind of nice because they didn't have that many, and Dodge doesn't have that many either for their trucks. Because Chevy basically, you had dating back to 73, you had the square body, you went to the OBS. There was the, I can't remember what the next generation, like the first gen Silverado, what they were called. But the second gen of that, they had the Cat Eye, as they called it, and, stuff like that, right? Just nicknames. And then Dodge, you had like the Tin Grill, first gen Ram, second gen Ram, third gen Ram, basically, right? Then fourth gen Ram. You didn't really actually have too many nicknames. They did have I think dent side and stuff like that, but like Ford, you have bump side, dent side, you have bullnose, you have freaking whatchamacallit, You have OBS. You have there's a few more, to be honest. They're just eluding my brain at the moment. But it's just so many, and it's just like, why? Like, I don't understand why. And actually, you know what? I just glanced over and saw that's a really good book. Hang on, let me grab it because it actually is a car book, technically. It relates to my channel. So I just saw it on the shelf, so I'm just gonna show you guys. Look what I found in the house. Stephen King's Christine. Now that is actually a car movie. You know, and it's a good book. It's a very long book, and the movie is fantastic. I love the movie. You know, apparently they're remaking the movie, which we'll see if it's any good. I don't know. When they remake a lot of movies, they're just not great anymore. It's kind of sad, but it is what it is. You know, so yeah, it's one of these things. You know, just figuring out what like what I'm gonna do next to the car. And who knows, it might be putting this carburetor on. Although there actually is one thing that, because the center console, I got the pieces that I was missing from my center console, so now I can hopefully finish that up. I'll just have to see if I can get it to work properly, because of the setup is just a little weird. I will fully say that. It's just a little weird. Because apparently, I guess I had the center console a little bit back, just a little bit. It does not affect the shifter one bit, but the only thing is, so to put that the shift sort of plate up there, it's that piece of plastic, and again, they are so brittle. If you try and cut it, it will shatter on you. They just do. That happened with my automatic bezel, which the automatic bezel is not the way to go. The manual bezel is a little wider so that you can actually get the shift boot to properly shift through and not actually hit it, right? So it does work. But because the center console is moved a little bit back, it's not moved far enough back for this to work properly, or like not, it needs to be moved a little forward technically, but instead of moving it forward, there's that plastic piece that covers up the whatchamacallit in there. It covers up where the handbrake is pulled, right? So it covers up that piece of a carpet there, and then the sort of mechanism for the pull, right, for the handbrake. And, you know, it just makes it look a little nicer, just this piece of plastic. The problem is, because of the center console that is moved back just a tad, which, honestly, I might want to move it back a little further than it is, but, because it's something I did to it. Because, again, I cut the front of that thing off, right? And I need to file that down to make it look a little nicer, and then go from there and see what exactly I'm gonna do for the front of that thing, because I don't know yet. I haven't figured that one out. But so the piece of plastic for that, I will need to actually take a file and just file it down a little bit so that I can actually get the handbrake to close all the way. Other than that, and then figuring out for that bezel, which I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna do, per se, because I don't know if I can file that back. I might be able to use a file and just file it slowly. It'd be a very slow process of filing and checking to see if it fit, filing and seeing if it would fit, because it should hold up to that, I would think. Shouldn't be a problem for a file. But an actual blade, you're just gonna make it shatter if you use any sort of blade, especially a recirculating blade. You don't want to do that, because I need to probably get it back about an inch. So it would take a while to file that down, and it's quite wide, because it's about yay wide, give or take. So, you know, it's about as wide as my tires in the wintertime. But we'll see. Like, to be honest, cause I don't know. I don't know yet exactly what I'm going to do with that per se. Like, cause I kind of want to keep that. I had this whole idea of, hey, I'm going to do this full custom center console, and it might happen someday, but it's just not gonna happen right away here. Because I was gonna build it all out of wood, but then I kind of thought that like it might not look right in there out of pure wood. However, I do have an idea though for something because I've never seen a fox body with this, and it'd be really cool to set up in there. And the reason why, because you might wonder, why did I actually chop off the front of that center console, to be honest? And it's because I have these cup holders that they're not designed for a fox body, but I've run them in my fox body for a while. And so there's a little cubby there as well, and it fits underneath the dash. And those cup holders, they sit, and basically it technically hits the radio, but that's not a big deal because I don't really adjust the radio. It's an AM radio, so I listen to one station that's out of Calgary, which is 960 FM or AM. That's it. It's a Sportsnet radio station, right? And it's for the Flames because I'm a Calgary Flames fan. So yeah, but because that's something that might happen. Because we might not put this carburetor on right away. Because again, I need to find a manual choke because this carburetor might go on the car. We'll see. I do like the adjustability that this carburetor has over mine. I was just hoping that it would gain a little bit of performance, but I don't think it's going to. It might actually, because it is a Holly versus a Motorcraft. But it's hard to say because it's not like these are like a super, oh my god, carburetor that are just amazing. Because Holly carbs are pretty good. Edelbrock carbs are decent as well, and Holly's been in the game since like 1906, so and like even Carter's can be pretty good. There have been some bad Hollys made throughout the years though. Like the original stock carburetor on my car was just awful. It was a really bad carburetor, to be honest. Was not a fan of that at all. That one barrel. Now, did it need a rebuild? Yeah, it did. But I had no adjustability to that thing whatsoever. I had the sort of just like an idle screw, and that was it on that carburetor. It didn't really have anything for like a proper mixture screw. And but like doing anything on it, it was just torture. I hated that carburetor. So as soon as I could, I got rid of it, and then did a 2-barrel conversion and have not looked back. I just have gained so much drivability with the car and a little bit of power increase too. Not a lot, but just a little bit out of that. Now, if I machine the intake and bolt it directly to the intake, I'd get a lot more power out of the car. A lot more. But, it'd probably be about a 10 horsepower increase, right? And that's the one thing, when people talk about, 5 horsepower increases and 10 horsepower increases, that's not a lot. Well, considering the car started with about, I think it was, because here's the thing, I don't actually know what horsepower that car was making from the factory. Because I've seen multiple reports of different stuff. I've seen it made 87 horsepower, it made 91 horsepower, I've also seen that, these have 8.7 to 1 compression. Well, other sources have said 9.2 to 1 compression. I don't know, to be honest. I really don't. Until I actually dynoed that thing, and now, mind you, I've upgraded it enough to where it's quite a bit better than stock. Still stock internals, stock cam, everything like that. But with a dual exhaust, with no emissions on it, with that 2-barrel carb, with the coil the way it is, because it's a super cell coil. I think it's like 45,000 volts or maybe 40,000 volts, something like that. It's a badass coil, to be honest. But so having that and everything, to be honest, and with the manual transmission as well over the automatic, I want to say I'm like from that 87 or 91, it's really negligible between the two numbers, to be honest. I want to say I'm at about 120 horse, maybe a little bit better than that. To the crank. Maybe. I might be ambitious at that, to be honest. It might only be like 110. I want to say I've created more power than that, but I just don't know. And I do want to change out the cam. I've thought about it. It's just not been high on the list. I wanted to do other stuff to make it a really good driver. And the exhaust, to be honest, I had the idea of doing the exhaust, and I had a really terrible exhaust setup on the car. And then my buddy Keith, which is actually, it's his house that I'm staying in right now, he actually gifted me that dual exhaust for my birthday. That he just put it on the car and then showed me pictures. And then when I came up here, because I left my car here for a little bit, I think we had just finished Lilo and fixing her, right? So I took Stitch up, I took Lilo back, and then I was figuring out when I could pick up Stitch again, right? And I finally did. I think I asked my dad to drop me off here as he was coming up to Edmonton, so then I grabbed Stitch and with the new exhaust, and I love that exhaust. And now the exhaust tone is so good. So good, especially now that I have the idle down turned down a bit, because I have the distributor advanced only 2 degrees, right? So it's not that advanced. It's quite, I'm surprised at how, retarded that timing is, and it's fine. And now, when I say that, if anybody in here is not car-centric, honestly, I'm not using that as a derogatory term or anything, but actually when you retard the timing, it actually is a term to reduce your timing. There's advanced and retarding timing. That's what it is, right? That's actually where that term initially came from, to be honest. And then it got used as a derogatory term towards people with disabilities. So yeah, it's kind of an issue. But it's just weird though. And that's why I want to say it's those springs, to be honest. And now, here's the other thing. Do I even bother trying to replace those springs? Or do I just say screw it and go to an HEI distributor? Because I've thought about that. And HEI, honestly, is a superior distributor, to be honest. And also, one of the things that is great about an HEI is the coil is right there, right? You don't have to run a long cable or anything. And the longer the cable is for your coil, the less power you're technically gonna make, because it doesn't have to travel, right? Electricity does travel. It's negligible, but to be honest, it just, when you have the least amount of resistance, as in, hey look, the coil's right on top of the distributor, then it's perfect, to be honest. And that's the way that I kind of wish Ford distributors were, with that coil right in that gap. It's perfect, to be honest. And HEIs are fantastic. I've thought about going to an HEI, and I probably will, to be honest. They do make an HEI for these 6-cylinders, because GM created the HEI design, and they've just been adapted for Fords, and I think they probably make an HEI to fit Dodges, to be honest. I would not shock me one bit about that. But yeah, because I've never really looked it up for Dodges, because I haven't looked up much for Dodges in a long time, especially aftermarket parts and stuff. Just haven't. Because Dodges are so off the radar for me right now. Even though I love my Mopars and everything, they're just too damn expensive, right? I can't. It's one thing that you can buy some Mopars that are cheap. As in, a Volare can be cheap still, right? You can get a Chrysler Fifth Avenue, right? Those are kind of your last blast of rear-wheel drive V8s, right? I think those two cars, actually, are, excluding trucks, right? Because the last blast for Dodge, because the Charger went front-wheel drive, because people forget about that, and people think oh, the four-door Charger is the worst thing ever. Go look up an L-body Charger. I like them, but it's definitely not my favorite Charger. In fact, it's probably my least liked Charger, but I still like them, right? Because I like every generation of Charger, but And people forget too, the Charger went on the Cordova chassis. Like that, it was a Cordova that just had a little different headlights. Basically it. And now they should have, honestly. They had this car called the Dodge Magnum in the late 70s. It was, I think, 76 through 78 or something like that. Or maybe it was 78, 79. I can't remember. It wasn't very long that they made this. It was called the Dodge Magnum. Now, these things were so cool because take a Cordova, you put, honestly, it was mostly just headlight covers with a nicer looking grille on it. You change out the tail lights, and you could get them as a T-top, and you just had a really neat looking car. I'd love to own one, but they're really hard to find. And you could convert a Charger or a Cordova to that. I don't think with too much difficulty, but you still need to find those Magnum specific parts. So it's a little tough because like the interiors are exactly the same, and you know you can get the rich Corinthian leather, which Dodge like famously was all over that to say, hey, rich Corinthian leather on their big size cars. It was hilarious, to be honest. They did that for a number of years, specifically through the 70s. I think through the 80s a little bit as well. But they started to get away from leather and they went towards crushed velour, which crushed velour is honestly fantastic. It's better to deal with because like, I don't like leather. And I'll tell you what. I don't like leather because, well, I don't like the temperature control. If it's not like a temperature controlled seat, the temperature control in a leather seat, especially if you have a dark seat in the middle of summer, that thing is piping hot, right? It's awful. And the winter time, it's really cold, right? Compared to velour or even just regular fabric seats, that the seats don't typically get that hot in the summertime, and they don't get that cold in the wintertime either. It's nice. I like because I actually have tweed for the material on my seats in my 81 Mustang. And now those seats are out of, I think an 84 or an 85 GT. Now, they are kind of rare because they're red tweed. Most tweed is gray, so to find red is pretty rare. But the black tweed is the most rare, though, because not many cars have black interiors, right? And my car now, because I'm doing this kind of gray and red theme, because the interior is all gray and red, and then the outside is gray, red, blue, and black. So, like I show you the car right now, but it's quite dirty, so it doesn't show that well. It's in the garage currently, and honestly, like it's, and I'll be curious to actually drive it because I haven't driven it yet since we did that timing adjustment. So we'll see how it actually drives now. Once I don't know, I might after this stream just take it out for a burn and see how it is. But there will be videos coming. They're just not the videos that I was hoping to get out, because I was hoping I was going to work on my buddy's Mustang and, you know, we'd see how that goes, but that didn't happen. Like, this trip, it's not a wasted trip, because, you know, I still get to see my buddy Keith, and I rebuilt this carburetor. You know, we did the adjustment on the car, and I can still do other stuff to the car. That's the brilliant part about this. We can also, like, we can work on his Dakota as well if we want to. I'm not really as a fan of working on the Dakota, to be honest. I'd much rather work on the Fox bodies. They're just a little more pleasurable to work on. But, yeah, because, and there's, my Dakota is actually done. It's, I think it's under the cover over there. Because they have this, on the back side of the garage, they have this tin cover that covers it's you know, kind of like a garage but without a door on it, right? And there's no, it's not concreted floor at all, it's just gravel. That's basically what it is. And, you know, there's a few cars parked there. Like his 82 GT is currently parked there, like his really cool, badass 82 GT. I've driven that thing, it's so much fun. But it definitely needs the rear gears changed. Because it's got 410s in it, and 410s are awful when you are actually wanting to drive the car. If you want to race it, they're perfect. To do anything else, they are awful. Because even with the it has 255, 60, 15, or 16s on it. What else you mean? So even on the highway, like that thing's still spinning at what was it? It's almost like 3,000 RPM at highway speeds because it doesn't have the really good overdrive tranny that is the world class transmissions that were in the Aero Mustangs, right? Those are the ones that are coveted and worth the money. The regular T5s you can pick up for like $300 or $400. They're not that expensive. The world class trannies, they are closer to like $1,000, right? $1,500, and they're worth the money because you do have they're a stronger transmission, they hold more power, and also the overdrive is better too because it goes from 83 to, because when they introduced the T5 in the Fox body in 1983 to I think it's 86 is the cutoff. I think it might be 85, but I'm not sure. Those are the regular T5s. The Aero Mustangs for sure, and even the 4-cylinders actually got the world-class trannies, which again have. So in my T5, for example, which came from an 83 V8 car, that the overdrive in that is a 0.82 to 1, right, for the overdrive gear, which is not bad, but it could be a lot better, right? If I had a world-class tranny in that thing, I would go from a 0.82 to a 0.67 overdrive. So my RPMs, even with these small tires, I'd be at like closer to 2,000 RPM on the highway. It'd be great with those little tires. And now with the big tires, I'd be at like probably 1,500 RPM, or potentially a little less than that. So, and I'll be curious to see, like driving the car, because again, I'm gonna take it for a bit of a burn and just see how it drives with the timing reduced. Because who knows, we might need to advance it a little bit, but we'll see. It should start a lot easier too with the non-advanced timing. Yeah, well, actually, maybe I'll do that right now, to be honest, because I'm not gonna get any interaction in the chat. It's fine. I've gone for an hour. That's fine with me. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go take it for a bit of a burn, and who knows, maybe I'll do a time lapse video, because the last one got great reception. It just did not get that many views, but that's okay, to be honest. I did like that style, and just doing the voiceover like I did, I love that style, and we'll see if I do want to do more of those. So stay tuned for that. In the summertime, there should be a lot more going on too with cars and stuff like that. And there's actually this really cool dyno day that's going to be happening that's actually featuring women. So it's really, really cool. I'm going to be advertising it in a couple of my women's only groups. And yeah, we'll see. If you weren't aware, actually, something that I will announce before I head off here. So there was a group that I was part of called No Boys Allowed. I initially left it due to some bad leadership, but then that person's gone now. So I am part of that group again. And, it's going to be fun. And there's actually a dyno day that is a women-centric dyno day that's going to be in Devon, Alberta. So I can't wait for that. It'll be so much fun. But yeah, once I have more details, I'll share that. But for now, I am going to sign off here. So I appreciate you all for watching, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Anyways, take care, and I'll catch you next time.